Maya was having one of those mornings. You know, the kind where everything that could go wrong decided to team up against you. Her alarm didn't go off, the shower ran cold halfway through, and now she was stuck in traffic, watching the minutes tick away on her dashboard clock. She had exactly 20 minutes to get to the office for the biggest presentation of her career. 20 minutes to grab coffee, fix her makeup, and somehow transform from a stressed mess into the confident marketing director everyone expected her to be. The coffee shop on 5th Street was packed, as usual. Maya pushed through the door, immediately hit by the smell of fresh espresso and the sound of the milk steamer hissing. She loved this place normally, but today she didn't have time to appreciate it. She needed caffeine and she needed it 5 minutes ago. Her heels clicked across the floor as she made her way to the pastry display. Thank goodness there was still one blueberry muffin left. She'd skipped breakfast and her stomach was reminding her loudly. Maya reached for it just as another hand appeared from the side. For a second, they both just stood there, hands hovering over the same muffin like some weird standoff. Maya looked up at the guy. He was probably in his late 20s, wearing faded jeans with a rip in one knee and an old concert t-shirt that had definitely seen better days. His dark hair looked like he'd just rolled out of bed, and he had a backpack slung over one shoulder. College kid, she thought, or maybe one of those freelance types who worked from coffee shops all day. I was here first, Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady even though her heart was racing from stress. The guy smiled like this was all just amusing to him. Actually, I think we both got here at the same time. Maya glanced at her watch. 15 minutes now. She didn't have time for this. Look, I have a really important meeting in 15 minutes. I need this more than you do. She knew she sounded harsh, but honestly, what did this guy have to rush to? Another day of sitting in the corner with his laptop, probably working on some app that would never launch? He looked at her for a moment, and Maya couldn't quite read his expression. Then he stepped back and gestured toward the muffin. Sure, go ahead. Looks like you need it more than me. Thanks, Maya said quickly, already turning to the cashier. She paid, grabbed her coffee and muffin, and headed for the door. As she pushed it open, she glanced back out of habit. The guy had settled into a corner table, pulling out a laptop that was covered in coding stickers. Just as she thought, some tech guy with nowhere to be and all day to get there. Maya felt a small smirk tug at her lips. His world and her world couldn't be more different. She was climbing the corporate ladder at one of the biggest tech companies in the city. She had deadlines, presentations, and a career path that required precision and dedication. He was probably still figuring out what he wanted to do with his life. The thought made her feel a bit better about being rude. At least her stress had a purpose. Maya made it to her office with 3 minutes to spare. She touched up her lipstick in the bathroom mirror, smoothed down her blazer, and grabbed her presentation materials. The conference room was on the top floor, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. This was where all the important meetings happened. Her colleague Tom was already there setting up his laptop. Cutting it close today, he said with a grin. Don't even ask, Maya replied, sliding into her chair. Is everyone here? Tom looked around the room. The chief financial officer was reviewing something on his tablet. The VP of operations was chatting quietly with the head of product development. But the chair at the head of the table, the big leather one where their CEO usually sat, was empty. Where's Mr. Harrison? Maya whispered. Tom leaned closer. You didn't hear? He retired last month. Today's the first day for our new CEO. Maya felt her stomach drop. What? Nobody told me that. I thought everyone knew. It's been in the works for a while. Tom pulled out his phone and quickly showed her an internal email she'd apparently missed in her morning chaos. Some young guy who sold his startup for millions before he turned 30. Word around the office is he's supposed to be some kind of genius. Great, Maya muttered. So I'm doing the biggest presentation of my life for someone I know nothing about. I heard he's pretty unconventional, Tom added. Showed up to his interview in jeans or something. But the board loved him. Maya's mind raced. She'd prepared this presentation assuming Mr. Harrison would be here. She knew his style, knew what he liked, knew how to read his reactions. Now she'd be presenting to a complete stranger. The CFO checked his watch. Should we start without him? Let's give him a few more minutes, the VP said. First day and all. Maya used the time to review her notes one more time, even though she practically had the whole thing memorized. She'd spent weeks on this campaign proposal. It was solid, innovative, and exactly what the company needed to stay competitive. She just had to sell it. The door opened. Maya looked up and felt the world tilt sideways. Walking into the conference room, now wearing a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, was the guy from the coffee shop. The one with the messy hair and the ripped jeans and the beaten-up backpack. Their eyes met across the room and Maya watched something flicker across his face. Surprise? Amusement? She couldn't tell. But then his expression smoothed into a professional smile as he looked around at everyone else. "Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice confident and clear. "I'm Ryan Mitchell, your new CEO. Sorry I'm running a bit late. Had to stop for coffee on the way in." His gaze landed on Maya again just for a second, and she swore she saw the corner of his mouth twitch. "Please don't let me interrupt. Let's get started." Maya felt like she couldn't breathe. Her mind was racing, replaying every moment from the coffee shop. The way she'd looked at him. The dismissive tone in her voice. The smirk she'd given him as she left. Oh no, this couldn't be happening. The scruffy guy she'd practically shoved aside for a muffin was now her boss. Not just her boss. The CEO of the entire company. "Ms. Chen?" The CFO was looking at her expectantly. "You can start whenever you're ready." Maya stood up on shaky legs, somehow managing to smile professionally, even though she wanted to disappear into the floor. Ryan Mitchell, her new boss, settled into the big leather chair and looked at her with an expression that gave nothing away. "Of course," Maya said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Thank you all for being here today." As she clicked to her first slide, one thought kept running through her mind on repeat. She had just been incredibly rude to the CEO of her company. And now she had to give the presentation of her life while he sat there, probably remembering every word she'd said. Maya's hands were shaking as she clicked to her first slide. She'd given dozens of presentations before, but never like this. Never while her new CEO sat at the head of the table, the same guy she'd dismissed as some nobody just 30 minutes ago. She took a deep breath and started talking. Somehow muscle memory kicked in. The words she'd practiced came out smooth and professional. She talked about market trends, customer demographics, and the 3-phase campaign strategy she'd developed. Her voice didn't shake. Her slides transitioned perfectly. On the outside, she probably looked totally confident. On the inside, she was dying. Every few seconds, her eyes would accidentally drift to Ryan Mitchell. He sat there, leaning back in that big leather chair, watching her with this calm, focused expression. He wasn't checking his phone like Mr. Harrison used to. He wasn't whispering to the person next to him or looking bored. He was actually paying attention, really paying attention. That somehow made it worse. "As you can see from this data," Maya continued, pointing to a graph on the screen, "our main competitor has been dominating the 25 to 34 age bracket. But there's an opportunity here. Their messaging is outdated. They're not speaking to what this generation actually cares about." The CFO nodded. The VP of Operations scribbled something in his notebook. Tom gave her an encouraging smile from across the table. "So far, so good." Then Ryan spoke for the first time. "What makes you think our brand can connect with that age group better than the competition?" His voice was different from how it had been in the coffee shop. More authoritative, but still somehow casual, like he was just genuinely curious about her answer. Maya swallowed. "Because we're not just selling technology anymore. We're selling solutions to real problems. And this generation, they can spot fake marketing from a mile away. They want authenticity. They want to know the people behind the brand actually care about making their lives better." "Interesting." Ryan leaned forward slightly. "Give me an example." Maya clicked to the next slide, grateful she'd prepared for tough questions. "Our competitor just launched a campaign about innovation. Lots of flashy graphics, tech jargon, big promises. But if you look at their customer reviews, people are complaining about basic things like customer service and user experience. They're all style, no substance. And you're suggesting we go the opposite direction?" "Exactly. We focus on the substance. Real stories from real users. Behind-the-scenes content showing our team actually solving problems. Less polish, more personality." Maya felt herself getting into it now, forgetting for a moment who she was talking to. This was the part she loved about her job. People don't want to buy from a faceless corporation anymore. They want to buy from people they trust. Ryan nodded slowly, and Maya couldn't tell if that was a good sign or not. She pushed through the rest of the presentation, covering budget projections, timeline, and expected ROI. The other executives asked questions here and there, but Ryan stayed quiet, just watching and listening. It was unnerving. Finally, she reached her last slide. And that's the complete strategy. I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have. What's your backup plan? Ryan asked immediately. I'm sorry? If this campaign doesn't perform the way you're projecting, what's your backup plan? How do you pivot? Maya hesitated. Nobody had ever asked her that before. Well, we'd analyze the data after the first month and adjust based on what's working and what isn't. A/B testing different messages, trying various platforms. That's not a backup plan. That's just normal optimization. Ryan's tone wasn't mean, but it was direct. I'm asking what you do if the whole strategy is wrong. If people don't actually respond to the authenticity angle, what then? The room went quiet. Maya felt everyone's eyes on her. Her mind raced. She didn't have a prepared answer for this because, honestly, she hadn't thought about it. She'd been so confident in her strategy. I'd need some time to develop a solid backup approach, she admitted. Deciding honesty was better than making something up on the spot. But you're right. I should have one ready. She waited for him to tear into her strategy, to point out all the flaws, to prove that the rude woman from the coffee shop didn't know what she was doing after all. Instead, he smiled. Good answer. Someone who admits they don't know something is more valuable than someone who pretends they have all the answers. He looked around the table. I think this is solid work. Really solid. The authenticity angle is exactly where the market is heading. I just wanted to see how you handle pressure. Maya felt her shoulders relax slightly. Was that a test? Had she just passed? Any other questions? Ryan asked the room. When nobody spoke up, he nodded. Great. Thanks, everyone. Ms. Chen, could you hang back for a minute? Maya's heart sank right back down to her shoes. Here it comes, she thought. He's going to fire me or humiliate me or both. The other executives filed out, Tom throwing her a sympathetic look over his shoulder. Then it was just her and Ryan in that big conference room with the city stretched out below them. Ryan stood up and walked over to the windows, hands in his pockets. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. That was a really good presentation, he finally said, not looking at her. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Ryan is fine. He turned around. Look, about this morning, I'm so sorry, Maya blurted out before she could stop herself. I was stressed and running late and I was completely rude to you. I had no idea who you were, obviously, but that's not an excuse. I shouldn't have acted like that regardless. Ryan held up a hand. Stop, you don't need to apologize. I really think I do. You were having a bad morning and needed caffeine. Trust me, I get it. I've been the guy fighting over the last bagel more times than I can count. He walked back toward the conference table. But I do want to ask you something, and I need you to give me an honest answer. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. How would you feel about leading the entire rebranding initiative for this company? Whatever Maya had been expecting, it wasn't that. What? We're expanding, not just as a tech company, but into AI solutions, machine learning, automation. We need someone who understands how to position us in a market that's changing every single day. He leaned against the table. Your presentation showed me you get it. You understand where things are going. And Tom told me you've been the brain behind every successful campaign we've had for the past 2 years. Maya's mind was spinning. This was the promotion she'd been dreaming about since she started at this company 3 years ago. The kind of opportunity that could make her entire career. Why me? She asked. You just met me, and I didn't even have a backup plan ready. Because you're honest. Because you think differently. And because when I challenged you, you didn't fall apart or make excuses. You admitted you hadn't thought of something and committed to doing better. Ryan crossed his arms. I've worked with a lot of people who are great at looking smart in meetings. I need someone who's actually smart. Someone who cares more about doing the work right than about looking impressive. This is a lot to process, Maya said carefully. I know, and I should tell you up front, this isn't going to be easy. It's high pressure, high stakes. You'll be working directly with me and the executive team. Long hours, tight deadlines, everyone watching to see if you can pull it off. He paused. So I need to know, are you up for it? Maya thought about all the late nights she'd already put in. All the campaigns she'd poured herself into while other people took credit. All the times she'd proven herself only to be passed over for promotions. This was her chance. And yeah, maybe she'd made a terrible first impression with her new boss, but he was standing here offering her the opportunity anyway. I'm up for it, she said firmly. Good. We start Monday. I'll have my assistant send you the project details. Ryan headed for the door, then stopped and looked back at her. And Ms. Chen? For what it's worth, I've been wearing that same concert t-shirt to coffee shops for 5 years. It's comfortable and it reminds me that I'm still just a regular person, even with the fancy job title. So maybe don't judge people by what they're wearing, including me. He walked out, leaving Maya standing alone in the conference room. She looked down at her designer heels, her expensive blazer, her carefully put-together outfit that was supposed to tell everyone she was successful and important. Ryan Mitchell had just taught her a lesson without even trying. He'd shown up in ripped jeans and a faded t-shirt, and she'd written him off completely. Meanwhile, he'd built a company worth millions and just offered her the biggest opportunity of her career. Maya pulled out her phone and looked at the time. She had about 100 things to do this afternoon, but first, she needed to sit down and really think about what just happened. The guy she'd dismissed as a nobody was actually the most successful person in the building, and somehow, despite her being rude to him, he'd seen something in her worth investing in. She wasn't going to waste this chance. Starting Monday, she was going to prove that his faith in her wasn't misplaced, but first, she was definitely going back to that coffee shop and leaving a really big tip. Monday morning came faster than Maya expected. She'd spent the entire weekend preparing, reading through the project files Ryan's assistant had sent over. The scope was massive. They weren't just updating a logo or tweaking some ad campaigns. They were rebuilding the company's entire public image from the ground up. Maya arrived at the office at 7 in the morning, 2 hours before most people. She wanted to be ready to prove she deserved this chance. But when she stepped off the elevator onto the executive floor, she was surprised to see lights already on in Ryan's office. She walked past slowly, trying not to be obvious about looking in. Ryan was at his desk, but he wasn't wearing a suit. He had on dark jeans and a plain gray hoodie, his hair still damp like he'd just showered. He was completely focused on his computer screen, fingers flying across the keyboard. "You're here early," his voice called out, making her jump. He hadn't even looked up. "Come in." Maya hesitated, then walked into his office. It was nothing like Mr. Harrison's had been. The old CEO had expensive art on the walls, fancy furniture, a whole shelf of awards and photos with important people. Ryan's office was almost empty by comparison. A standing desk with 2 large monitors, a whiteboard covered in diagrams and notes, a beat-up backpack in the corner. The only personal touch was a small photo frame on his desk, though Maya couldn't see what picture was in it from where she stood. "I wanted to get a head start on the project," Maya explained. "Good. Me too." Ryan finally looked up. "Coffee?" "I'm okay, thanks. Suit yourself. I'm on my 3rd cup already." He grabbed his mug and took a sip, then gestured to the chair across from his desk. "So I've been thinking about your presentation. The authenticity angle is right, but I think we need to go bigger." Maya pulled out her tablet, ready to take notes. "Bigger how?" "Everyone talks about authenticity now. It's become a marketing buzzword. We need to actually be authentic, not just say we are." Ryan stood up and walked to the whiteboard. "What if we opened up our entire development process? Let customers see how we build products, how we make decisions, even when we mess up?" "That's risky," Maya said carefully. "If we make a mistake, everyone will see it." "Exactly. That's what makes it real." He started drawing on the whiteboard, creating boxes and arrows. People trust companies that admit they're not perfect. They don't trust companies that pretend they never make mistakes. Maya watched him work, seeing the excitement in his movements. This was different from the polished CEO who'd sat in that conference room. This was the guy who'd built a successful startup from nothing, who actually understood the product they were selling. "What are you thinking?" Ryan asked, catching her staring. "I'm thinking this could either be brilliant or a complete disaster." He grinned. "Those are usually the same thing. The best ideas are the scary ones." Over the next few weeks, Maya learned that working with Ryan was unlike anything she'd experienced before. Some days he showed up in expensive suits for investor meetings. Other days he wore hoodies and sat with the development team, actually writing code alongside them. He remembered every employee's name, from the executives to the guy who cleaned the offices at night. Their strategy meetings often ran late into the evening. Ryan pushed her ideas further, questioned every assumption and refused to accept anything that felt safe or boring. It was exhausting and exhilarating at the same time. One Thursday night, they were in the conference room going over mock-ups for the new website design. It was almost 9 o'clock. Most of the office had cleared out hours ago. "This feels too corporate," Ryan said, tapping the screen. "Too much like everyone else." "That's the third design we've rejected," Maya pointed out, trying not to sound frustrated. "The design team is going to hate us." Good design isn't about making the design team happy. It's about connecting with users. He pulled up a competitor's website on the other screen. "Look at this. Clean, professional, completely forgettable. Someone will visit this site and forget about it 5 minutes later." "Okay, so what do you want instead?" Ryan leaned back in his chair thinking. "What if we made it feel more human? Less stock photos and generic copy. More real stories, real faces. Show our actual office, our actual team. Make people feel like they're getting to know us, not just buying from us." Maya made notes on her tablet. "We could do a series of employee spotlights. Not just executives, but everyone. The developers, the customer service team, the people who actually make the company run." "Yes, exactly." Ryan sat forward again, energized. "And we could do behind-the-scenes videos. Show how we solve problems when things go wrong. Make it feel like people are part of the journey with us." They worked for another hour, building out the concept. Maya had forgotten to be nervous around him weeks ago. Now they just worked together, bouncing ideas back and forth, challenging each other, creating something neither of them could have built alone. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said during a break while Ryan was refilling his coffee. "Sure. Why do you still write code? You're the CEO. You have entire teams of developers." Ryan came back and sat on the edge of the conference table instead of in his chair. "Because that's why I started this whole thing in the first place. I love building stuff, solving technical problems. If I just sat in meetings all day making executive decisions, I'd lose my mind." He paused. "Plus, it keeps me honest. I can't make decisions about the product if I don't actually understand how it works. Most CEOs don't think like that. Most CEOs probably shouldn't be CEOs then." He smiled. "Look, I know people think I'm weird. The board definitely thinks I'm weird, but I didn't become successful by doing what everyone else does. Why would I start now?" Maya found herself smiling back. "That coffee shop. You go there every morning, don't you?" "Even now. Every single morning. Same place, same order. It's the one part of my day that feels normal." His expression shifted, becoming more serious. "Being the youngest CEO in the company's history isn't exactly easy. People either treat me like I'm some kind of genius who can't make mistakes, or they're waiting for me to fail so they can say I was too young for the job. The coffee shop is where I'm just another customer, where people treat me like a regular person, even if that treatment involves fighting over muffins." Ryan laughed. "Especially then. That morning. You had no idea who I was, and you treated me exactly like you'd treat anyone else who was in your way when you were stressed. It was the most honest interaction I'd had in months. Everyone else was already calling me Mr. Mitchell and asking what I needed. You just saw me as some random guy." Maya felt her cheeks warm. "I still feel bad about that." "Don't, it was refreshing. And it showed me something important about you." "What's that?" "You're genuine. You don't change who you are based on who you're talking to. You're just as direct with me now as you were that morning." "That's rare." He stood up, stretching. "Most people start treating me differently once they know who I am. You just kept being yourself." There was something in the way he said it that made Maya's heart skip. They'd been working so closely together, spending so many late nights collaborating on this project. She'd gotten to know him not as the CEO or the millionaire entrepreneur, but as Ryan. The guy who still got excited about solving problems, who cared more about doing good work than looking important, who wore hoodies to the office and remembered everyone's name. "We should probably call it a night," Maya said, suddenly aware of how quiet the office was, how alone they were in this conference room. "Yeah, probably." But Ryan didn't move. "Although I have to say, some of our best ideas have come from these late-night sessions. That's because we're both too tired to overthink things. Maybe. Or maybe it's because we're actually comfortable enough with each other to share the weird ideas." He gathered up his laptop. "Same time tomorrow?" "I'll be here." As Maya drove home that night, she couldn't stop replaying the conversation in her head. The way Ryan had talked about the coffee shop, about wanting to be treated like a normal person. The way he'd looked at her when he said she was genuine, She told herself it was just a good working relationship. That's all it was. They were colleagues collaborating on an important project. The fact that her heart raced a little when he smiled at her didn't mean anything. But deep down, Maya knew something had shifted. This wasn't just about work anymore. Somewhere between the presentations and the late-night strategy sessions and the honest conversations, she'd started seeing Ryan not as her boss, but as someone she genuinely cared about. And that was going to make things very complicated. The rebranding project was almost complete. 3 months of late nights, endless revisions, and intense collaboration had led to this moment. The launch was scheduled for Friday, and Maya felt like she was walking around with a knot of anxiety permanently lodged in her stomach. Everything was riding on this. The company's future direction, her career, and if she was being honest with herself, her relationship with Ryan, whatever that was becoming. On Wednesday afternoon, Maya was in her office reviewing the final promotional materials when her phone buzzed. A message from Ryan. Need your opinion on something. My office? She found him standing at his whiteboard again, but this time he wasn't drawing strategy diagrams. He was just staring at it, marker in hand, looking uncertain. It was the first time she'd ever seen him appear unsure about anything. What's up? Maya asked, closing the door behind her. Ryan turned to face her. I've been thinking about the launch event. We've got the presentation ready, the media lined up, everything's set, but something feels off. Off how? Too formal? Too corporate? We're launching a campaign about authenticity and being real with people, but we're doing it in a hotel ballroom with catered food and scripted speeches. He tossed the marker onto his desk. It feels fake. Maya sat down considering this. So what do you want to do instead? I don't know. That's the problem. Ryan ran his hand through his hair. A gesture she'd learned meant he was frustrated with himself. I keep thinking about why I started my first company. It wasn't in some fancy office. It was in my apartment with 2 friends, staying up all night because we believed in what we were building. That feeling, that energy, that's what made it real. You want to capture that feeling for the launch? I want people to feel it, not just hear about it. He sat down across from her. Tell me honestly, if you saw our launch event as a customer, would you believe we were different from every other tech company? Maya thought about it. The truth was probably not. They'd planned something professional and polished, exactly like what their competitors would do. Safe, predictable, boring. No, she admitted. I wouldn't. Ryan nodded slowly. So we need to change it. 2 days before launch. That's insane. I know. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Maya felt a smile spreading across her face. Okay, let's be insane. What if we didn't do a formal event at all? What if we did something completely different? Like what? What if we launched it from that coffee shop? The one on 5th Street? The idea was forming as she spoke. We invite people there, keep it small and casual. You talk about the company from the same place where you go every morning to feel normal. We live stream it so everyone can watch. It's authentic because it's actually real. Ryan's eyes lit up. The employees could be there. Not just executives, but everyone. The whole team that built this, exactly. No scripts, no formal presentations. Just honest conversation about what we're trying to do. Maya was getting excited now, too. It's risky, but that's the point. We're showing people we're willing to take risks to do things differently. The board is going to hate this idea, Ryan said. But he was smiling. Probably. Are we doing it anyway? Absolutely. They spent the rest of the afternoon replanning everything. Maya called the coffee shop owner, who was surprisingly enthusiastic about hosting a major company launch. Ryan sent out a new invitation to a smaller, more diverse group of people, media and customers and employees all mixed together. No VIP section, no hierarchy, just people in a coffee shop talking about technology and change and doing business differently. That night, as they were finalizing the details, Ryan suddenly stopped and looked at her. What? Maya asked. I was just thinking about that morning we met. If you'd known who I was, would you have been yourself? Or would you have put on the professional face, said all the right things, treated me like every other executive? Maya considered lying, but they'd gotten past that point. Honestly, I probably would have been completely different. More polished, more careful, less real. That's what I thought. And that's exactly my point. Ryan leaned back in his chair. Everyone's always performing for me, trying to impress me or please me or tell me what they think I want to hear. But you were just you, stressed and rushed and human. And then when you found out who I was, you didn't fall apart or start acting fake. You just kept being honest. I didn't really have a choice. You'd already seen me at my worst. That wasn't your worst. That was just you on a bad morning. There's a difference. He paused. You know what else I've learned from working with you these past few months? Maya's heart was beating faster, though she tried not to show it. What? You make me better at my job. Not because you agree with everything I say, but because you challenge me. You tell me when an idea is stupid. You push me to think differently. And you genuinely care about the work, not just about climbing the ladder or impressing the boss. Ryan, let me finish. He stood up and walked around his desk, leaning against it in front of her. I know this is probably crossing some professional line, and maybe I shouldn't say this before the biggest launch of our careers. But I need you to know that working with you has been the best part of coming to this company. And it's not just about the work. Maya stood up too, her pulse racing. What are you saying? I'm saying that I look forward to our morning meetings more than I should. That I find excuses to ask your opinion on things because I like talking to you. That somewhere between the muffin incident and now, you became the person I most want to share things with. He smiled, but there was nervousness in it. I'm saying I like you, Maya, as more than just a colleague. And I know the timing is terrible and it's probably a huge mistake, but I couldn't get through this launch without telling you. Maya felt like the floor had shifted under her feet. Part of her wanted to be professional, to point out all the reasons this was complicated. He was her boss. They worked together. People would talk. But another part of her, the honest part that Ryan had seen from the very beginning, knew exactly how she felt. You're right, she said quietly. The timing is terrible. Ryan's expression fell slightly. But I don't care, Maya continued, because I feel the same way. I've been trying not to for weeks now, telling myself it was just a good working relationship. But it's not just that. You're brilliant and passionate, and you actually care about people, not just profits. You wear concert t-shirts to coffee shops and remember everyone's name, and you make me want to do my best work. And somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you as my boss and started seeing you as just Ryan. The person I want to talk to when something good happens. The person who makes me laugh during stressful meetings. So what do we do about it? Ryan asked. I have no idea. But maybe we figure it out after the launch. When we're not both running on 3 hours of sleep and 50 cups of coffee? Ryan laughed. That's probably smart. Very professional. I can be professional when I need to be. I know. That's one of the things I like about you. He reached out and gently took her hand. But after Friday, when this launch is done, I'd really like to take you to dinner. Somewhere that's not this office or a conference room. I'd like that too. They stood there for a moment, holding hands in his office with the city lights twinkling outside the windows. Maya felt like she should be scared or worried about what this meant for her career. But all she felt was happy. Genuinely, unexpectedly happy. We should get back to work, Ryan said finally, though he didn't let go of her hand. We really should. The launch is in 2 days. I'm aware. Neither of them moved. Then Ryan's phone buzzed loudly on his desk, breaking the moment. They both laughed and stepped apart. Back to being colleagues, at least for now. But something had changed between them, shifted into place like a puzzle piece finding its spot. As Maya left his office that night, she realized something. That morning in the coffee shop, she'd looked at Ryan and seen someone who didn't matter in her carefully planned world. She'd been so wrong. He wasn't just someone who mattered. He'd become someone essential. And in 2 days, they were going to launch something amazing together. Then they'd figure out the rest. Friday couldn't come soon enough. Friday morning arrived with perfect weather. Sunny but not too hot, with just enough breeze to feel refreshing. Maya stood outside the coffee shop on 5th Street, watching the setup crew arrange chairs and test the camera equipment. It looked nothing like a typical corporate launch event, and that was exactly the point. The coffee shop owner, an older woman named Patricia, was thrilled about the whole thing. She'd agreed to close to regular customers for the morning, and had even baked fresh pastries for the event. The smell of cinnamon and coffee drifted out every time someone opened the door. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from Tom. The live stream is ready. We're already getting viewers logging in early. This is really happening. It was really happening. In 1 hour, they'd be launching the biggest rebrand in the company's history from a small coffee shop instead of a fancy hotel ballroom. Maya felt her stomach do nervous flips. You look terrified. Ryan's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him walking up, wearing dark jeans and a button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Not quite as casual as his concert t-shirt, but definitely not CEO formal either. He was holding 2 coffee cups. "I brought peace offerings," he said, handing her one. "Your usual. And before you ask, yes, I let you have the last blueberry muffin this time." Maya laughed despite her nerves. "How generous of you." "I'm trying to make up for that first impression." He stood beside her, looking at the coffee shop. "Having second thoughts about this?" "About 50 of them, you?" "At least 100. But I think that means we're doing something right. If we weren't scared, it would mean we were playing it safe." People started arriving, employees from every department, looking excited and a little confused about why they were at a coffee shop instead of a ballroom. Tech journalists with their cameras and notebooks. A few influential bloggers who'd accepted the unusual invitation. Even some customers who'd been part of their beta testing program. Maya watched them file in, mixing together naturally without the usual corporate hierarchy. Developers chatting with marketing people, junior employees laughing with executives. It felt more like a community gathering than a business event. The CFO arrived looking skeptical, but even he seemed to relax a bit once he got inside and saw how well everything was coming together. The VP of Operations was actually smiling, something Maya rarely saw. At 9 o'clock, they went live. Ryan stood at the front of the coffee shop with no podium, no teleprompter, just a microphone and a room full of people. Maya watched from the side, her heart in her throat. "Good morning, everyone," Ryan started. "Thanks for coming. I know this isn't what you probably expected for a major company launch. No fancy ballroom, no catered lunch, just coffee and conversation, but that's kind of the whole point." He talked about how the company started, about the values that had gotten lost somewhere along the way as they grew, about wanting to get back to what mattered. He was natural and honest, not trying to sound like a corporate executive, but just like himself. "A few months ago, I was in this exact coffee shop," Ryan continued. "I was nervous about my first day as CEO, so I came here because it's where I feel most like myself. And I had this interaction with someone over the last muffin in the display case." Maya felt her cheeks warm as a few people chuckled. "I lost that muffin battle, by the way, but I gained something more valuable. I was reminded that the best things happen when we're just being real with each other, when we stop trying to be impressive and start trying to be genuine." Ryan looked directly at Maya. "That person taught me something important, and she's been teaching me important things ever since, which is why I asked her to lead this entire rebranding project." "Maya, do you want to come up here?" Maya's heart jumped. This wasn't part of the plan, but she walked up to join him anyway, taking the microphone he offered. "Hi, everyone. I'm Maya Chen, and I'm the person who stole that muffin." More laughter. She felt herself relaxing. Ryan's being modest. "The truth is, that morning I judged him completely wrong. I saw someone in casual clothes and assumed he wasn't important. I was rude to him because I was stressed and thought my problems mattered more than his." She looked at Ryan, then back at the room. "Working on this project taught me that authenticity isn't just a marketing strategy. It's about admitting when you're wrong, being honest about your mistakes, and treating everyone with respect regardless of their title or what they're wearing. It's about building real connections instead of professional facades." Maya talked about the campaign, about the employee stories they'd collected, about the decision to show the messy behind-the-scenes reality of building products instead of just the polished final results. She felt confident now, speaking from the heart instead of from a script. When she finished, the room broke into genuine applause. Not the polite golf clap of corporate events, but real enthusiasm. People actually cared about what they'd built together. The rest of the morning flew by. Journalists asked questions. Employees shared their own stories about what the company meant to them. Patricia, the coffee shop owner, even talked about how much she'd enjoyed having Ryan as a regular customer long before she knew who he was. By noon, the live stream had gotten over 50,000 viewers. Social media was lighting up with positive responses. Tech blogs were already publishing articles calling it the most authentic corporate launch they'd ever seen. Maya stepped outside for a moment of quiet, overwhelmed by how well everything had gone. She heard the door open behind her and knew without turning that it was Ryan. "We did it," he said softly. "We really did." They stood there in comfortable silence for a moment, watching people through the window celebrating together. "So," Ryan said eventually. About that dinner. Are you free tonight? Maya smiled. I think I can make time for my CEO. I was hoping you'd make time for Ryan, not your CEO. Well, Ryan, I happen to be very free tonight. He grinned. And Maya noticed how different he looked when he smiled like that. Not like a successful entrepreneur or a company leader, just like a guy who was happy. There's something I've been wanting to ask you, Ryan said. Do you still come to this coffee shop? Sometimes. Why? Because I was thinking maybe we could make it our thing, meeting here on Sunday mornings. No work talk, no project deadlines, just coffee and conversation. I'd really like that. They went back inside to wrap up the event. As Maya helped Patricia clean up, she thought about how much had changed in just 3 months. She'd walked into this coffee shop on a stressful morning, fought over a muffin with a stranger, and never imagined that stranger would become the most important person in her life. 6 months later, they were still meeting at that coffee shop every Sunday morning. Ryan would show up in his beloved concert t-shirt. Maya learned to slow down and appreciate those quiet moments before the chaos of the week began. They never fought over muffins anymore, but they still laughed about that first morning. The rebranding had been a massive success. The company's value had grown significantly, and Maya had been promoted to vice president of marketing. But more than any professional achievement, she'd learned something valuable about seeing people for who they really were, instead of making assumptions based on appearances. Sometimes she'd catch Ryan looking at her across their usual table, coffee in hand, and he'd smile in that way that was just for her. And she'd think about how wrong she'd been that morning, how close she'd come to missing out on something amazing because she'd judged too quickly. Life had a funny way of teaching lessons. Maya's came in the form of a muffin, a coffee shop, and a guy in a faded t-shirt who turned out to be so much more than she'd ever expected. The best surprises, she'd learned, often came from the people you almost overlooked. And the best relationships started when you stopped trying to impress each other and just started being real. Every Sunday morning, sitting in that coffee shop with Ryan, Maya was reminded that sometimes the most important moments in life happen in the most ordinary places. You just have to be present enough to recognize them when they arrive.